Canberra for Cam's Mortgage Minute on Friday, October 19th. Speaking with a client the other day, and they were relaying to me how frustrated their kids were. Their kids live in Vancouver and they were starting a family and wanted to buy a house. And they were lamenting the fact that houses were insanely priced. They were looking on the east side of Vancouver where houses, even, an average family home runs $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. And I kind of shared with them my story. I said, back in the 70s when my parents came to Canada, they bought a house for around $32,000. That's right, $32,000. That same house in '92 we sold for about $360,000. And I know for a fact that that house today, this period later, is worth close to like $900,000. And frankly, that's insane. It's not a fabulous house. It was an old house. Yes, we renovated it, we fixed it up, but you know what? It's not what I envisioned a $1 million home to look like. I mean, certainly not in the 70s. Back then, a $1 million house was just something that was absolutely grandiose. It was fabulous. I remember there was a period where my parents in the early 80s were looking at a house in Point Grey, and at that time, that house was close to about $900,000, and they thought that was insane. That same house on Point Grey Road today is worth close to $5 million. So yes, the prices are all over the map. So I said to them, I said, well, why don't your kids consider moving out towards Surrey or North Delta or some other place? And they said, well, they don't want to. I said, well, yeah, but that may be the case, but sometimes these are the things we have to do. I mean, we would all love to, have a gorgeous house, but the reality is sometimes the price point just isn't there. And they said, well, the city should be doing more affordable housing. They should be having more affordable this and more affordable that. And I said, well, it's not mandated that a city forces everybody, or the city is forced to have to create affordable housing so those who make less income live in a certain area. Now, that may sound elitist or bourgeois or whatever, but the bottom line is that if you're making $30,000, $40,000 a year, you can't afford to live in Vancouver. You've got to be living elsewhere. You got to have to look in the suburbs, or eventually when you get married, you can have a person who's got another income. That's just the reality of life. And I see this all the time, and it goes back to what I was saying before, where people don't save. We want things now. We want them immediately. Nobody wants a sacrifice. So nobody wants to be living out in the suburbs. Everybody wants to live in the core of the city, but do it on a $200,000 condo, which doesn't exist. The reality is major cities throughout the world are priced accordingly. If you go to London, there is no affordable housing in London. In Paris, there's none is the case. The bottom line is these major cities afford their price ranges, and the people who can afford to live in them do. Usually it's either homes that have been passed throughout the family, or sometimes it's just people that got great careers and stellar jobs and that sort of thing. And the rest of us, well, we wind up living in the suburbs. I mean, that's just the reality of life. Everybody has to make do with what they're given. And you know what? Living out here, living in Canada, living in BC, we're not hard done by. I mean, it's certainly a fabulous place. So, you know what? If you've got kids that are thinking of buying a property, don't, consider an outer area. I mean, the bottom line is they've got to find something that fits their budget. The housing market is not going to change to work for them. They're going to have to look at what's going to work in their budget and shop accordingly. And of course, I mean, this doesn't mean they can never buy that kind of property in the future. They can always look towards it, save up, and upgrade. And as I mentioned to you a few days ago, a home is just that. It should be a place where they're still happy living, still enjoy it. And I find that, quite frankly, the suburbs or more rural areas, people are friendlier. I mean, you know your neighbors. There isn't the same issues. You're not fighting the traffic. There's certainly advantages to living in these areas. So it's not all bad. Anyway, it's been Cam for Cam's Mortgage Minute. Just something to think about. And I will see you on Monday.